When you think about how the ultra-rich spend their money, you probably picture the usual stuff. Yachts, private jets, maybe a $3 million car with doors that open like wings. But that's nothing compared to what they spend on art. We're talking about paintings that go for $300, $400, even $1 billion. Quiet auctions, anonymous buyers, secretive deals, and the art? Sometimes it's not even on display. It just disappears into a vault somewhere. Billionaires, they've got taste. Or, at least, expensive taste. And if you follow the money, you'll see a pattern. A history of obsession. What mattered to the artists who made these works, what haunted the collectors who chased them, and how, decades or even centuries later, we're still trying to figure out what makes a painting worth that kind of money.
In 2018, Banksy's Girl with Balloon was shredded during a live auction, selling it for $1.4 million.
So, in this video, we're going to see artwork worth billions, the top 5 most expensive pieces ever sold, the stories behind them, the people who paid for them, and what drives their jaw-dropping value. It's about power, legacy, and sometimes something a little darker. And make sure to watch till the end because the most expensive artwork of all time? Yeah, that one's in the billions. It's wrapped in controversy, shrouded in secrecy, and we'll get to it right at the end. You're not going to believe the price or the story behind it. Alright, the first artwork we're looking at today is one that literally vanished from history. Salvator Mundi.
This is the most improbable story that has ever happened in the art market.
It's not even a good painting.
This is a painting of Christ holding a crystal orb and raising his hand in blessing. It's also called the male Mona Lisa. It's believed to have been painted by Leonardo da Vinci himself, sometime around the year 1500. But for almost 200 years it was just gone.
This really was this lost original that had been thought to have disappeared for centuries.
I've been looking at art for 40 years, and this is a made-up piece of junk. His entire life, Leonardo never painted anybody dead on.
I have found a picture like this. It's just so far-fetched. You're just going to look like a fool.
No one knew where it was. No record, no museum, nothing. But that uncertainty might actually be part of what made it so valuable. Nobody knew where it went. No one talked about it. And then, suddenly, in 2005, it shows up in a random New Orleans auction house. Gets sold for just $1,175. At the time, people thought it was just a copy, probably done by someone in Leonardo's studio. But then came the restoration. Diane Modestini, a well-known art restorer, took it on. She spent years carefully peeling back the damage, and as she did, something started to shift. The face, the hands, the texture in the orb, the brushwork, the subtle light in the skin, the depth in the eyes, those little things that only Leonardo really mastered. By the time she finished, people started saying, and this might actually be the real thing.
No one could have painted this except Leonardo.
Experts debated, of course, but enough people in the art world believed it. And that belief turned the painting into gold. Fast forward to 2017, it goes up for auction at Christie's in New York. Bidding starts at $100 million. 19 minutes later, it hits $450.3 million. Add in the buyer's premium, and it rounds up to $480 million. That made it the most expensive artwork ever sold at auction.
And the piece is sold.
The buyer? Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He was supposed to display it at the Louvre, Abu Dhabi, but that never happened. To this day, no one really knows where it is. Some say it's hidden in a storage vault in Switzerland. Others claim it's on MBS's private yacht, the Serene, just sailing around with a $500 million painting locked below deck. Now, why would someone pay that much for a single painting and then never show it to anyone? That's kind of the thing with art at this level. It's not just about taste, it's about power. Art like this isn't always bought to be seen, it's bought to be owned. Quietly, permanently. It's a status symbol, a financial asset, a legacy move, and in some cases, a useful tool for moving money without anyone asking questions. Because when you can move $400 million with a painting instead of a wire transfer, it raises eyebrows, but not always alarms. And this one? It's got the perfect recipe, controversial origins, missing for centuries. A Jesus portrait tied to Da Vinci. Was it stolen? Debated? Was it hyped? Definitely. Is it even authentic? No one knows for sure. But that mystery? That's what made it priceless. Or at least $480 million worth of priceless. And I'm sure the guy who sold it for $1,175 back in 2005 will regret it to this day. Alright, let's move to the second one, and this one might surprise you. It's not religious, it's not Renaissance, it's not even something you can figure out by looking at it. It's just wild brush strokes, bold color, total chaos, and somehow, that chaos sold for $300 million. This is Interchange by Willem de Kooning, one of the most important names in abstract expressionism, and one of the few artists who went from struggling immigrant to selling canvases for the price of a tech startup. De Kooning was born in Rotterdam, super working-class background. He literally stowed away on a British ship in the 1920s just to get to America. Ended up painting houses in New York during the day, and then painting his stuff at night. Fast forward a few decades, and now he's considered one of the boldest painters of the 20th century. Interchange is basically the peak of his style. Loosely formed shapes, explosions of color. Almost looks like a face is buried in there, but it's never fully clear. And in 2015, hedge fund billionaire Kenneth C. Griffin bought it from music mogul David Geffen. $300 million. No auction, no bidding war. Just one quiet transfer of ownership that broke records. What's wild is, it didn't vanish into storage. Griffin actually loaned it out. Right now, you can see it in the Art Institute of Chicago, which, honestly, is kind of rare. A lot of these billion-dollar pieces, they just disappear into vaults or private galleries. Griffin bought this and another piece, a Pollock, on the same day. Nearly $500 million in art. Why? Because when you're that rich, you don't just buy paintings, you buy cultural authority. It's a really flexible way to park money. And with de Kooning, there's an added bonus. His pieces keep going up in value. Woman 3, another one of his works, sold for $137.5 million. Police Gazette, $63.5 million. Even his more obscure stuff, pulling in tens of millions. So yeah, this is market-proof wealth, hiding in the shape of abstraction. And the fact that it's in a public museum right now, that's just smart PR. Moving on, next up, we're dialing it back to the roots of modern painting. This one's called The Card Players, by Paul Cézanne. Sold for a reported $250 million, and it didn't even go to a private collector. It was bought by an entire country. In 2011, the royal family of Qatar picked it up as part of a bigger push to turn Qatar into a global art hub. And this painting was the crown jewel of that mission. There are actually 5 different versions of The Card Players. Cézanne painted them all himself, each with slight differences. 3 of them are in museums, one's in a private collection, and this one is now owned by the state of Qatar. Most people haven't seen it in person, it's not always on display, but it helped put Qatar on the map as a serious art buyer. Cézanne himself is often called the father of modern art. Monet once said he was like the Flaubert of painting, methodical, relentless, obsessed with realism, but in a way that stripped everything down to its raw shape and emotion. And The Card Players is a perfect example of that. 2 men sitting across a table. Simple scene, no flash. But the stillness in it, the geometry, the balance, it's hypnotic. Now, this painting has also been through some things. Back in 1961, it was stolen during a midnight robbery in the south of France, along with 7 other Cézanne. They were eventually returned, but only after a ransom was paid. And that heist became part of a string of art thefts across remote French estates, where billion-dollar canvases were hanging on poorly protected walls. It got so sketchy that some private collectors just gave up and sold their art before someone broke in. At the time, Qatar was building museums, buying influence, hosting global exhibitions, and collecting blue-chip art like this helped them project taste, status, and cultural weight on the world stage. It's soft power wrapped in oil paint. So this sale? It wasn't just a financial investment. It was a play for legacy. $250 million for 2 quiet men playing cards. Next in the line, we've got something way more colorful and way more complicated. This one's called Na Fea Fa I Poipo, or, in English, When Will You Marry? Painted in 1892 by Paul Gauguin during his time in Tahiti. And on the surface, it looks calm. 2 women sitting in a dreamy landscape, full of warm colors and island symbolism. But the story around this painting, it's amazing. When Will You Marry is about human connection, waiting, hoping. But the painting itself? It became part of a cold, high-stakes transaction between billionaires, lawyers, and power brokers. For decades, it hung quietly on loan in a museum in Basel, Switzerland. Then, in 2015, it was sold privately for $210 million. The buyer, Sheikha Al-Mayasa bint Hamad Al-Thani, a member of Qatar's royal family, the same family that bought Cézanne's card players. At the time, people thought it sold for nearly $300 million, which would have made it the most expensive painting in the world.
Jaw-dropping art sale today sold for close to $300 million.
But a legal dispute later revealed the real number was $210 million. Turns out, the whole thing was way messier than anyone knew.
It's believed to be one of the highest prices ever paid for a single piece of art.
There was no auction, no public record, just back-channel negotiations that dragged on for almost 2 years. A London court case revealed that the seller, a Swiss collector named Rudolf Stechelin, was being sued by an art dealer who claimed he'd put the deal together and was owed a $10 million commission. But there was no written contract. It was all based on gentlemen's agreements, trust, handshakes, that kind of thing, which, in the art world, is still how a lot of these insane deals go down. The seller pushed back, saying he was misled about higher offers, and that if he'd known the truth, he might never have accepted the deal. So, yeah, not exactly a clean sale. And finally, here it is, the painting we mentioned at the start. The one that doesn't just top the list, it blows past everyone else. The Mona Lisa now, technically, it's not for sale. But if it ever were, yeah, we'd be talking about a number so big it probably wouldn't even stop at $1 billion. Right now, it's valued at around $1 billion, and that's just based on insurance estimates and inflation math. Truth is, no one really knows what it's actually worth. Because how do you even price something like this? It's been sitting inside the Louvre in Paris for over 2 centuries, locked behind bulletproof glass, climate-controlled, guards everywhere. And legally, it can't be sold, it's part of France's national heritage. But even with all that security, it still got stolen once. Back in 1911, this guy, Vincenzo Ferrugia, used to work at the Louvre. One day, he just hid inside overnight, dressed up like a worker, and walked out with it under his coat. Seriously, he hid it in his apartment for 2 years, and when he finally tried to sell it, he told people he just wanted to bring it back to Italy. Which, yeah, kinda sounds noble. Until you remember he was asking for $500,000. Liar. He got caught, did 7 months in jail, and when the Mona Lisa came back to the museum, that's when it really blew up. Before that, it was just a great painting. But after the heist, it became a myth. People lined up just to see the empty wall. And once it returned, it wasn't just a Da Vinci, it was the most famous piece of art on Earth. It's in ads, cartoons, songs, memes. You could show it to a kid who's never stepped foot in a museum, and they'd still go, oh yeah, that one. So why's it worth $1 billion? Not because of the paint or the canvas or the size. It's about what it represents. Legacy, mystery, fame. It's the art world's crown jewel. And even if someone offered $5 billion tomorrow, it still wouldn't leave that wall. Because some things aren't just expensive, they're untouchable. And that were the artwork worth billions. If you made it this far, then you should check out the channel for more interesting content like this, and also go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We got more such video coming in the next days, so you don't want them to miss. See you there. Until then, take care.